Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Big East Rewind. I am Chuck Everson, your host from Villanova University, and my co-host, as always, is the sensational Dr. Sonny Spera. How are you, Sonny?
Chuck, I'm great. I'm great. Going to have a good show tonight. Another big guy. I noticed you lined up for us tonight. That's no accident.
Listen,
I know.
That's not an accident, Sonny. You know what? The guards don't answer the phone, Sonny. I got to be honest with you. People answer the phone. And listen, for all you guards that are out there, we would love to have you on the show and pick up your phone, and that would be great. And we will get you on. No problem. And Sonny will stop having problems. But but to your point, Sonny, we do have another big guy with the rewind today. And this guy, we got a St. John, we got a Johnny in the house, a Redman. I can't bring myself to say Red Storm, even though my daughter.
No. I agree with that 100%.
I can't do it. It's not in my DNA. But this guy was on that '83 Big East championship team for St. John's. He was drafted 56th in the NBA draft by the Kansas City Kings, and is now the founder and executive director of Pro Basket Consulting. The big guy in the middle for St. John's, Jeff Allen. How are you, Jeff? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Chuck, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure, and it's a great opportunity to kind of, as you said before, just share some good memories about the days when it was the Big East, and it was. I tell people all the time, the powerhouse conference, and something to really be proud about.
Yeah,
premier conference. Yep.
We've had a lot of fun, as we've said many times on the show. It's been great for us, and what's cool about the whole thing, Jeff, is we've kept in touch with a lot of the guys that we've had on, and it may be guys that I haven't had conversations with in 25 or 30 years, and next thing you know, they're calling me just to see what's going on and how you doing and that kind of stuff. So it's really nice that we get to stay in touch with our Big East brethren.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It really is.
So let's kick this off. So you're a Norwalk, Connecticut guy, right? So
yeah.
You grew up playing ball. Talk about growing up in Norwalk, Connecticut, and how you got to Rutgers first, because I had no idea. Because
you did your homework. Wow.
We're professional journalists.
We're professional journalists.
You guys are on. I give you credit.
Make no mistake. I said Rutgers. I didn't know that. I got to find out about that. So let's start in Connecticut. Where did you learn how to love the game of basketball, pal?
So I learned to love it. That's a really interesting question. And so I was, a big kid, a little uncoordinated. Was not a passion of mine. I loved other sports. I really enjoyed hockey and baseball growing up. And then probably when I was about 14 or 15 years old, a guy moved into my neighborhood, and he was a swimmer, and he loved basketball and would come over. We started playing one-on-one, and we would just play one-on-one all day. And it got to the point where some Saturdays we'd play for 3, 4, 5 hours and have dinner and then go back out again at night. And it kind of, got bit by the bug, enjoyed it, and then just started playing pickup at the local playgrounds. And I would get on my bike and go to the beach. I'd ride 5 miles down, and we had a bunch of guys down there, and we would just play pickup basketball. And I really started finding myself enjoying it. And that was, my sophomore year of high school is when I really, I think, kind of started finding myself. We had a new coach. His name was Ray Berry. And he came in and kind of revamped the program and made me a little bit of a focal point and just stayed on me. He was the kind of coach who would, work with you over the summer, open gyms for you, call other schools and get, when's the work out there? When can Jeff play? And just really got me going. And from there, it was a learning experience, to be honest with you, because I lived a sheltered life, playing a little bit of, Connecticut basketball. And we had some good players back then. We really did. Southern Connecticut had really good talent, but it wasn't until I got the exposure going into Manhattan and New York and playing against, all the guys there, and really kind of opened my eyes to that next level.
Now, wait, you said, wait. You said something. Hockey was a sport that you were playing?
I loved hockey, and it's funny. I used to have to. We would play games on the road away at 6 a.m. and my poor dad worked all week, Monday through Friday, and Saturday morning we would be 45 minutes away, and you had to be there at 5:30. And he's waking up, and we're doing it.
That's crazy.
At the end of the year, he's like, he's like, "How much do you really like this hockey thing?" I said, "I like it." He goes, "Because they have open gym basketball." I would literally play hockey games and go back and be there for open gym at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning and play. And he goes, "What are you going to do, basketball or hockey?" I said, I like them both. He goes, what are we going to do? Basketball or hockey? I said, basketball. And so
Can you imagine, Jeff, you and Billy Winnington on skates playing?
I
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
No,
funny?
Billy was a big hockey guy too.
He's a big
How about the
hockey
front
guy.
line? How about Chuck's the center and you're the right wing, Jeff,
Holy
and Billy
smoke.
Winnington's the left wing?
And I think
It's like we'd
Frank
be 8 foot
Gilroy,
tall on skates, Jeff.
hey Chuck, I think Frankie Gilroy played a lot of hockey growing up too, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
Holy
That's
cow.
great, man. That's
We
great.
might have had a
Sorry,
team.
Chuck.
Yeah, I tell you what, no one would mess with us. That's for sure.
Yeah,
I'll
well,
tell you that.
we'd win something. It might not be the game.
Yeah. So okay. So now when you start getting recruited, there was really no AAU per se back when you were
Nothing.
playing, right? So talk about some of the camps you went to and how you got seen and how that whole process worked for you.
So it was really strange. I was under the radar. I was not seen. Like people didn't know about me at all. And as I said, I was playing a lot of the Connecticut tournaments. I went down, there was a tournament that they had at Riverside Church. I think the Gaucho sponsored. And that was the first time I played in that tiny little gym. And I played against Rodney and Scooter McRae and guys like that. I played pretty well. And I think, a couple of schools saw me there, but my junior year going to my senior year, I had a couple of Division II schools looking at me, and that was about it. And as I mentioned, my coach, Ray Berry, knew about 5-star. And so he signed me up for 5-star. And I went there and I played well. And I really liked the format. I just liked the coaches who were there. Rick Pitino, a bunch of guys like that. And I had a great week. I played well. I made the All-Star team. I played well in the All-Star game. And I got back and literally that next week I had 50 schools, calling and emailing or not, they didn't have email back then, but sending letters. I'd go to my first period class and it'd be like 20 or 30 letters there every day. And I was like, it was overwhelming. But
today, right? That would be, you went viral, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I literally is like, I had one Division II school who was looking at me and my dad was trying to get them to offer.
Wow. So what schools did it come down to for you before you chose Rutgers?
It was Rutgers, Villanova, St. John's, Syracuse, and DC.
Okay.
That's some nice
Villanova
schools.
was really close. I love Massimino. I had a good visit there and it was hard to say no there. And, St. John's was a real close second. I love Coach Carnesecca and the whole thing. But at that time, St. John's didn't have any dorms. And there was no on-campus living. And so the visit was, after school, it was a parking lot and it really didn't have that college feel. And so 2 weeks later, it was Halloween weekend. I went to Rutgers and they had a football game and frat parties and just the whole, Friday, Saturday, Sunday was just revolving around, just all kinds of student activities. And I said, this is what the college life is supposed to be about. And so that way.
Did you visit Syracuse? Did you visit Syracuse?
I didn't visit Syracuse. No.
You would have got that experience there too,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
It was so hard because as a kid, it's so hard to, go up and you guys know, and Chuck, and you go on a weekend and, they tell you all the good stuff. They hide the bad and, you have a good dinner and you go out with a couple of the guys and you go to the practice the next day. And, it's so hard. And so for me, it really came down to where was I going to play? Where was I going to get time? And where did I think I would fit in? And Rutgers just graduated James Bailey and a couple other guys. And so there were a couple spots in the front, but they recruited a lot of big guys. They had a transfer coming in and they had Roy Henson come in, who played in the league for a long time. And I was there. And so they had recruited another kid, Kevin Black, out of Washington, D.C., like a 6'7" forward. So, we had 5 freshmen who were all 6'7" to 6'10", and it was just a battle for minutes. And style of play got a little bit different than what I was used to. And so,
who was the head guy there? Was that Tom Young?
Tom Young was a head coach. Very good.
Yeah. I went on one of my
professional journalist. I just want to
there it is again.
I just want to remind you who you're dealing with here.
There it is again, man. So Coach Young was there on my visit, and I visited there, and the place was enormous. I'll say that. Rutgers is a fine institution, but it was gigantic, right? I mean, you had to take buses to get from one class to another, pretty much.
That was the hardest thing, and so I didn't factor that in. So exactly, I had to take a bus to and from practice, and I would catch a ride once in a while with one of the guys. We had a car, but there are a few times where you're over at the gym and it's 7:30 at night and the bus doesn't come.
Yeah.
You know, you're hungry, you miss dinner, you got homework, it's winter, and I'm not playing, you know, and so I'm like, I don't know about this.
Talk
And
about a bad day,
that's
Jeff. Holy
that's the
cow.
cream on the top, right? If you're not
Yeah,
playing.
talk
Yeah, I
about a
was
bad
playing a
day.
little bit. I was playing a little bit, but I just, you know, I wasn't happy with the situation and my playing time and the, you know, the style of play. And so the way it worked out was I have a younger brother and he was in high school and he was playing a game and Coach Carnesecca and the coaches of St. John's went to go see his game and they weren't allowed to recruit from another school. But my dad just said, hey, any chance Jeff could, you know, and he said, have him call me. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was going to
gonna
ask you
say,
what was
yeah.
the process now? Because you have to request your papers to
Yeah,
release.
again, that's a great question. So they can't recruit you, and so you have to kind of initiate it. And so my dad pretty much said, "Hey, we ran into the St. John's coaches, and I kind of mentioned that, and so I had to call Coach Carnesecca and say that, you know, could we talk?" And so he came and we met at a little diner off campus, and I remember this vividly. We talked for like an hour, and I had a Coke and he had a coffee, and one of the other coaches were there, and we were done. He made me pay for my Coke. He said, I can't pay for you, you know, and still to this day, I remember that. And that's the way he ran the program. He's like, you know, I can't do anything, you know, and I can't give you a ride back. It was, you know, 20-minute walk back to campus because he wasn't going to come on campus. So I paid for my own Coke and I walked home. And I said, I love this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something special about Lou. Now that you mentioned it, talk a little bit about some of the charms that's Lou Carnesecca.
It's funny because I saw him just a couple of weeks ago and he hasn't changed. He still is as witty as ever, clever, funny, a little frail physically, but you know, he was such a good people person. I mean, he was obviously a basketball genius, but there were just times in games where, you know, you're struggling and things aren't coming together. He'd call a timeout and he'd tell a joke, you know, or he'd say something funny, loosen you up. And he'd say, let's just do what we do. Let's be who we are. And he was so good at just rallying people. And, you know, I tell my sons now, we used to have 4-hour practices, you know, and we loved it.
Wait. Shh.
Yeah,
You might
no,
want to say there might be people listening.
yeah, no, we would just go and, you know, he loved it. He was passionate and you would feed off of his passion and drive. I mean, he was the hardest working guy I ever saw. And so, you know, to this day, he's still, you know, I love talking to him. I spoke, you know, as I said, I saw him a couple of weeks ago. I call him once in a while during the holidays, and he's hysterical. You know, he's just such a witty guy. And the other thing that I was very, very fortunate is when I decided to transfer. I'm not even sure now, but you know, you had to sit out. Chuck, I don't know if you remember that.
Right.
You transferred, you had to sit
Sure.
out of here. So I went there and I said, I got to show who I am and what I can do. So I got to be in good shape. I got to work hard. And it was the year I was sitting out. We were playing preseason. It was like the end of September, just pick up in the gym. And again, my apartment was off campus. So I walk home. I literally got home and 10 minutes later, Carmine Calzanetti was there and says, Coach wants to see you. I said, I was just in the gym for 3 hours. What I mean, he was there, I was there. He goes, he wants you to come back. So I went back and he walks me and he goes, I want you to meet the new assistant. We have a volunteer assistant coach. He's going to work with the big guys. I'm like, okay, who? He goes, come on to my office. And I go in, it's Willis Reed. I'm
Wow.
like, holy shit. It's like, you know, here I am with Lou Carnesecca and Willis Reed. And I was like, I think it may have been my best year. The year I sat out, I still tell people to this day because, you know, we would run the other team's offense. So we were the scout team. And so practices were fun. If we're playing Syracuse on Saturday, like Thursday and Friday, we're going over the Syracuse team and we're Syracuse, you know, and then 3 days later, we're Villanova and I'm John Pannone or I'm Patrick Ewing. And I'm learning other teams, you know, systems, their style of play. I'm being coached by Lou Carnesecca and Willis Reed. And I'm like, it doesn't get any better than this. And then, you know, we bring Chris in, you know,
So Chris came in in your redshirt year.
He came in my first year. He wasn't there
Okay.
for my redshirt year. It was my sophomore year was his freshman year. So we played 3 years together.
Yeah, so that was Billy Wennington, Ron Stewart,
yeah,
and Chris Mullen, right?
Very good. And so, yeah, Bill was a freshman.
That was my year too.
Yeah, okay. So Bill was a freshman too. And again, Carmine Calzanetti brought me after practice. He says, I'm going to go recruit somebody. I want you to come help me. I said, okay, whatever I can do to help the program. I'm a red shirt, you know, we're gonna recruit somebody. And we get there and it's like Bill Wennington. I'm like, I just left Rutgers because they had like 3 7-footers and you got me recruiting another one. And he said, it's going to be good for you. And Lou, Lou brought me in. You guys are going to bang heads every day. And it worked out great. Bill's a great guy. I mean, he's such a sweetheart, and, and coach was right. To play against him every day was phenomenal.
Yeah, it helps. I mean, listen, I got to play against John Pannone and Eddie Pinkney. I know exactly what you're talking about every day.
So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So get him. Go ahead, Sonny.
I was just going to ask you, Jeff, any stories you'd like to share about Lou? Travel, dinner? Is an Italian. There's got to be some good meal stories.
There's a lot of good meals. I just don't know if we can share them on. I think the best stories I tell people, I don't know how it happened, but somehow Lou appointed me or found why I became his guy. But when a referee screwed up a call, he would say, Jeff, go get him. I want to talk to him. And I would be like, the first couple of times, I'll never forget, the first time I was in Syracuse in the Dome. And you know how Lou talks, and then every other word was, something you can't say, but he said, go get that, and get him over here now. Tell him I want to talk to him. So my first year playing, we're in the Dome. I don't know. So I go over to the ref. I say, hey, ref. And the guy didn't turn around. I said, ref. He doesn't turn around. I go, excuse me, sir. He goes, yes. I said, Coach Carnesecca would like to speak to you. So he goes walking over, and I'm kind of behind a little bit, and Lou unloads on him. I mean, literally unloads. I'm like, oh my God, I hope no one, thank God it's a Dome and no one's close by and everything. And it was just, I couldn't believe what I heard. And then, literally like 3 weeks later, we're playing, I forget where it was, and the ref made a bad call, called a charge on Chris, and someone was hanging on and he missed a shot, and Lou's like, go get that. And the same thing, I got the guy goes trotting over. I'm trotting right behind him with a big smile, just waiting. I can't, just.
You realize that could have been me hanging on him, by the way.
Yeah, it could have been, right?
I could have been the bad guy. I could have been the bad guy that caused Lou to lose his temper.
Quite possibly.
He was so good about when he lost his temper, but you could always tell. When he got mad, but it was always in a loving way, if that makes sense. I mean, you never felt like he didn't care about you. He's had a few times where I dogged it in practice and he really got on me, but at the end of the day, I'm like, I get where he's coming from. He's right. He's right. So
yeah. I think it has a lot to do with that Italian heritage, Jeff. I played for one of those guys as well.
Yeah.
A fiery, emotional guy. But and he worked real hard and played real hard.
Yeah.
And I know you guys used to have meals at what's the place that was down the block from school that you guys would go to all the time? The Italian place.
Dante's.
Right?
That's it. Yeah.
So I mean, what was that like? I mean, he'd bring you in at that point. Was there a lot of cutting up with the guys and him, or is it all business all the time with him, or was it? Because I know
after
was the time that he would go around and break balls with everybody.
Yeah, he still does that. Yeah, after a game or something, or on a day off or something. But before games, pre-game meals were a little formal. Like guys were tense. Right. You could feel it. Guys were ready. Chris was serious. Billy Goodwin, Kevin Williams, game face, a little nervous, a little anxious. Just trying to pass time. No one really ate. Like we'd pick at food for a while and they eat after a game, but Dante's was the spot. I think it was more, Chuck, the stories you're referring to are probably the ones after the games.
Yeah.
And one of the funny ones, one of the famous ones was, I think it was, we were in his office and the guy who runs the athletic budget came running in screaming, upset, and he was mad. He goes, Lou, do you realize how much you spent last night? We beat Georgetown and down at Dante's. He goes, do you know how much you guys spent? And Lou goes, no. He goes, you spent more than the swim team's annual budget. And Lou looks and goes, we beat Georgetown. But I'll never forget that line. He goes, you spent more than the swim team's annual budget. And he goes, we beat Georgetown. I was like,
yeah, that's classic stuff. I mean, he was, and he still is. I mean, when I was my daughter is just finishing up there now in grad school. And so when the day that we saw you, Harold Presley was at the house and said, hey, let's go down. Have you met Coach Mullen? And she says, no, get in the car. Let's go. Yeah. And we just show up down there. And then you walked in, and then it was the four of us hanging out. But, those guys, I've always had a good time when I was around both. And I'm not just saying it because you guys both played at these places, but the Syracuse guys and the St. John's guys were always the nicest guys. to hang out with. And maybe because I went to high school with Ronnie Stewart, I don't know,
Yep.
but
Yeah,
those guys, and it just seemed like they were, well, don't piss them off, especially on the court, but like off the court, all great guys.
good people. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about some of your relationships with some of the guys on those teams.
Yeah, we tried to stay in touch, I think, a little bit. Lou did a great job when he first stopped coaching, keeping everyone together, and the school's had a few events since then. I stay in touch with Chris a little bit. As I said, I saw him, last week, but we kind of got out of touch when he was in California a little bit. Billy Wennington a little bit, Billy Goodwin. Most of it is just, an occasional St. John's event kind of thing.
Yeah.
My roommate, Mike Feigenbaum, I see him regularly. We play golf a little bit every once in a while and go to games, but the other guys, not quite so much. We're trying to get some things back together now. And Chris has been helpful in that. They did have a lunch the other day with Lou. I couldn't make it. As I said, I saw him at the golf outing. I saw Chris and Coach a week ago. So it wasn't that important for me to see him again twice in a week. But, some of the other guys, David Russell was there, Billy Goodwin was there, and those guys. But no, we've lost touch, and we keep on saying it's just so hard to get back. Everyone's got things going on. Bill Wennington's, doing his thing out in Chicago, and Chris is out in California. So it's a little more difficult. I think as a program, we probably should do a few more things, but we don't.
Okay. So let's get into some of your teams that you had. Okay. You were on that 83 Big East team. Right, Big East champions team, when we saw Billy on top of the backboard, with the signs and stuff,
with the sign
on the SI cover, right?
Yeah.
So talk about what was different about that team than say the year before, when that was your second year playing, right?
Yeah.
So what was the difference like between that team and your first year playing at St. John's?
We were just more mature. We knew each other a little bit better. The first year we were kind of finding each other. Chris was a freshman. I was a transfer in. Bobby Kelly came in. We had Billy Goodwin. And so kind of figuring out.
Bobby Kelly. Yep.
Yeah. Bobby Kelly, great point guard. He was, coach on the floor, ran the plays, just got the ball to people at the right time, so we had some talent, but we didn't know each other well. And we were figuring things out as we grew. I think the second year, coming back, I remember practice, like the first day of practice was not drills and stations like it was the year before. The first day, coach is like, okay, run this or run that. We were just going into plays and scrimmaging within a half hour. He was like, we're not going to go through all the stuff about it. You guys better be, he had the conversation, you better be in shape, and you better be ready. And so we started practice just almost scrimmaging and going over, systems, offense and technical stuff. So, but that was a great team. We were deep. We were balanced at positions. We had guys who were defined by their roles and knew what to do and were happy doing it. I was a role player. I tell people all the time, my job was, defense and rebounding and setting screens and things like that. And if, but I was happy doing it. And Bobby Kelly wasn't a scorer. At Holy Cross, he was a good scorer there. He was. And we had guys who fit in. Kevin Williams was a super talented guy coming off the bench, and no one could figure him out. And he could play the 1-2, defend a 3, and we just had, I think, talent at each position with Goodwin and Dave Russell and, and Bill. And it was just, we covered a lot. We covered a lot of area, and coach just did a good job of bringing us together. We were really, as I said, disciplined and, a lot like the Villanova teams. That's why we like playing you guys so much. It really was two similar teams.
Yep. You guys seem to have our number even back then. I think in my 4 years, I remember beating St. John's once, possibly twice. And it was a crazy game at then Alumni Hall, which is now Carnesecca, right? Yep. And there was a foul late in the game. We thought we won the game. We went running off. We were up 2. Yeah. And Billy was on the foul line for a 1-and-1. He made the first and missed the second with no time left. We wound up winning by 1. Yeah. But other than that, especially in '85, after you left, we couldn't beat them. I mean, they beat us 3 times.
They were good that year. They were good. They were deep. And I'm trying to think, '84. So my senior year, I don't even remember if we beat you guys or not. Did we split? We won at home and you guys won down there, I think.
I think so. Yeah. Oh yeah. Because John Pannone made a shot at the buzzer.
Yep, and the Palestra, right? And,
I think that was at the Spectrum, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. He was like a last second, Stu gave the ball up, which he didn't expect, and John hit one from like the top of the key, and
Yeah, like a well-designed play. Go to your center at the top of the key.
whatever works, Jeff. You know that.
Now you're a genius, right? That's how much fun that again.
That's right. That's right.
So,
He was a
Jeff, you
talented
go from the scout team to now you're playing and you're contributing. Who are some of the matchups that you remember were really tough on your board, like you had to come up with and face?
Villanova, because you had Pannone and Pickney, they were different, well coached, smart, didn't make a lot of mistakes. Just defended well. They were always tough. Obviously Georgetown, but I love playing against them. I just think they were super competitive, tons of talent. Style was a little bit different than ours, and so if we couldn't let them get on a run and get going, because it's hard to stop them. But we matched up. We played well against them. We enjoyed them. Providence gave us fits. I don't know why. It's funny you mentioned that. It's a good question. Otis Thorpe, remember him?
Otis.
Oh yeah.
He was just a hard guy to guard, to cover. He could make that 17, 18 footer, can score with both hands around the basket, and just a real good, strong
Guy.
athlete.
Yeah.
And their other guys were good. And so, we struggled against them. I mean, we would, it'd go down to the wire. We'd go in there thinking we're going to win easy. And here it is, 2 minutes to go, you're down one. It's
Yeah. Yeah. And that place that wasn't exactly easy to play.
no.
It was the Civic Center back then. Yeah.
What were some of the arenas that you remember that were always like on your radar to say, it's a little tougher place to play, tougher, either fans or the environment,
Boston College and Villanova. What did you guys call it? The Cat House, the little
Cat House. Yeah.
Cat House was,
Yeah.
those were tough places just because the environment, and again, two well-coached teams. It's funny, people mention the Carrier Dome. I like the Carrier Dome. They say, well, it's a tough place to shoot. I'm not a shooter. I don't shoot anyway, so it doesn't bother me. It's better for me because guys miss, I get rebounds. I don't know, but
Yeah.
a fun place to play. I love playing. The Spectrum was nice. I think the conference just had great, as we've said before, great coaches, great cities, great arenas. I mean, you're in Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, New York, Boston, and you got guys like Raftery and Lou and Massimino and Boeheim. It's just everything came together. It was perfect. It really was. The conference was great. It's I have two young sons who played a little bit of Division III basketball, and they asked how the Big East was. I'm like, you guys back then, we weren't good. We were the best conference in the country by far. I mean, ACC was good, Big Ten, everything, but 85.
I agree with you.
We had three teams in the Final Four, right? In 85.
Yep.
Yeah. In 85. Yeah.
Yeah. I think 83, we had 3 in the Final 8 or something. So
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. That was and it was in a short period of time, Jeff. I mean, the conference started when you were at Rutgers, they got underway. And then in a short period of time, in 6 or 7 years, we've had like 5 or 6 teams in the Final Four. You know? And produced just that quick, and that's that was it.
Yeah, but I think they had a lot of good people behind it, and just the momentum got going. Some smart people. I mean, they took advantage of what they had and recruited well and promoted it well. And the whole Big East Monday night thing was a hit, and so they did it.
And they got a little lucky too with that. I mean, ESPN was in its infancy as well. They were just starting out, and that was a perfect match to have them take on. They needed content, and the Big East had it, and next thing you know, they got Big Monday, and it was great.
You're right. That's a good point. It came together well.
Yeah. So speaking of the Big East, so talk about your memories of the Big East tournament. Now, did you guys stay in Manhattan when you were playing at that time, or did you go back home?
Coach Carnesecca didn't like staying in Manhattan for the tournament. He just thought there was too many distractions, so the first couple of years we actually stayed out in Long Island at a place called the Harrison House. It was a convention center.
Oh, really?
So it was past campus, like another half hour. It was like an hour and 15 minutes from the Garden. Like we had one game, we played the late game, we finished, it was like 10:30, 11 at night. We didn't get out there till 1 in. But we were the only ones. We had the whole place to ourselves in the winter, and he just he wanted everyone together and focused. And then I think the last year we stayed out by by LaGuardia Airport, but we didn't stay in the city. And in a way, I understand it, but I miss it because I go back now and talk to the guys who did come there, and they just talk about the great memories of the Big East tournament and being in Manhattan for
We
4 or 5
we
days.
always stayed at that LaGuardia Marriott. Always.
Did you? Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And it
Not a
was,
great.
and we would rent cars, and we would have
Yep.
to drive cars into the city.
Yeah. Right.
Oh my goodness. There's stuff like accidents in the toll booth. Brendan Malone bumps the car. I mean, like, you know,
we were at the Essex House all the time. We stayed at the Essex House right by Central Park.
Yeah, that's a nice spot.
Right in the middle of everything. And, that was one thing I've said this before, Coach Mass let us be kids, but God help you if you messed up, you had to pay the piper, but he let you be a kid.
Yeah.
And he wanted us to experience everything. So that was kind of cool,
Yeah.
It sounds like Coach Lou was trying to do his best John Thompson impersonation, having you guys stay an hour and a half or 2 hours from the arena.
Yeah, he wanted to win, and I get it. I get it. I mean, the line he used, he said, "You hang out in Manhattan, there's too many characters." I'm like, "Well, there's characters all over, Coach." And he's like,
I'm talking to a character, right?
Yeah. I'm like,
Coach, right?
I was like, "Lou, you don't think we see characters every day on campus, and we don't go to Manhattan? We're adults." And he's like, "No, we're all going." He ran a tight ship. So.
Hey, listen, it served you guys well. Most of the times, if you weren't in the finals, you definitely were in the Final Four on that Saturday night.
Yeah. We did well in the tournament, so you can't argue with success. You're right.
Talk about those games for a minute, Jeff. Talk about Final Four weekend at the Big East. That is, Sonny and I have said this many times, that there was such an electric feel to the Garden and the city at that time. I've never experienced anything like it as a fan or player anywhere else.
Right, it's amazing, and you really can't describe it. It's just it's especially the game night. Just like when you walk around the city, you pull up in the bus, and you got fans from all over the Big East. If you're St. John's and you're playing Villanova, you got some Syracuse people rooting for you. Then the next night, the Syracuse people hate you. But it's just such it's all basketball, and it's just so intense, and and just Madison Square Garden is what brought it together. I used to love the Garden. I loved it. I mean, we used to practice then. I used to love just going to the Garden and practice, and nobody's there but us. And I just, I'd look around, it's Madison Square Garden, and I'm practicing. And here I was a couple of years ago, like riding my bike to the beach, looking for a run. And so I don't know, did you guys get to practice there a little bit before the tournament at all, or no?
We did
just shoot around, maybe that was it. Nothing to speak of, not like that.
We'd go in once in a while. It was really cool because we'd practice, like 4 to 6, and there'd be a Knicks game that night or Knicks practice, and the Knicks would come. I remember Bernard King and just being really super impressed with him, his work ethic, running sprints after or whatever, or just working out. And so we'd shower, grab a slice of pizza, and go back and stay for the Knicks game. It was, we were lucky. We were lucky. I look back now. I mean, wow, just, you think about it, and we're practicing in the Garden. We're watching the Knicks play. And life was good. Life was good.
It was, and listen, did you guys feel a sense of pressure at all because you were quote unquote the home team, being a New York City team and we're playing in the Garden?
Yeah, I think we always felt, I wouldn't call it pressure, but like a responsibility to win. Yes. Expectations. Yes. But I think we dealt well with pressure because we were so well prepared. I mean, I don't think I ever went into a game, only just one game where we struggled over. It was when Georgetown pressed us and we weren't really ready for it that first year, and they jumped on us. But other than that, I went into every game just saying, I know what they're going to run. I know what we need to do. And if we execute, we're going to be good. And if we get it down in the last 2 or 3 minutes, we'd spend hours and hours on, just running the clock the last 2 or 3 minutes of the game. And so we knew what we were going to do. And so we were confident, but, it was more excitement for me, Chuck. It really, it was obviously a little bit of pressure, but I just loved that environment.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, it was, once
in a lifetime
type of thing.
We'd go play you guys, and it would be the same thing. The Spectrum was sold out, and you go down to Georgetown, the Capitol Center. What was it then? What was it? Landover? What they have?
The Capitol.
Cap Center.
Sold out, and then you go up to the Dome, and that's sold out. And I'm like, this is pretty damn good.
Not bad. You made the right choice leaving Rutgers. Then you'd say.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell this story. I was at Rutgers. We were playing up at UMass on a Saturday morning. They had that old gym. I don't know if you ever saw the really old gym at UMass.
Yep.
And it was a foul shot. And I didn't play a lot. I came in and, late in the first half, I was stiff. I was cold. The gym was like 40 degrees and everybody was excited because it was on Channel 9 TV. It was like the regional New Jersey station, and so we play the game and I'm on the foul and the guy misses the first foul shot. He's about to take the second one. A squirrel runs across the lane where we are. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, and so we play up there, we lose and we go home. And then the next day I'm watching St. John's playing in the Garden on national TV. I'm like, I could have been there, and so it hit me that, that weekend, it literally was like a Saturday game. And then St. John's was either Saturday afternoon or Monday or whatever. And sure enough, and then halfway through the season is when I kind of reached out to Lou and said, I want to play in the Garden.
Yeah. So talk.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Sonny.
So when you wrap up your career, you get drafted. Talk about what it's like to hear your name or get called for the NBA.
Yeah, it's exciting. I didn't hear it because I was with my parents in upstate New York, and their cable provider didn't cover the draft. So we jumped in the car, went to a hotel, and the hotel didn't have it either, and the whole thing. So my agent called me a little bit later and told me, and so it was exciting, but it was not like it is now. It's not all the the TV and all the stuff that goes on now. But
was that expected, Jeff? Were you expected to go higher, lower? Did you feel good about?
No idea. Lou knew a lot of people, and kind of said, back then they had 10 rounds, and so
Right.
the year before, some of our guys got drafted in the 8th round, 7th round, and so Lou just said, you're probably going to get drafted where we don't know. Could be anywhere from 2 to 10, and so
Yeah,
it was what it was. I was happy.
You got picked ahead of a lot of good players. Clyde Vaughn was one of them. I mean, he was
well, I was better than
Pittsburgh
Clyde.
guy, led the conference in scoring. It's pretty good,
He was a talented player. He was a good player. Yeah.
So you go to Kansas City,
Yep.
right? So what was that like? What was the expectations there? Did you have a shot at making the club? And what was that like for you?
I didn't know what to expect of it. I just, kind of took the same approach, go work as hard or harder than anybody there and just do whatever you're told and just survive. And it was a little overwhelming because the first day we had like 40 guys there.
Yeah.
And there was just too many to even run drills and stuff. So they just did a lot of conditioning stuff. And the first workout was like from 9 a.m. to 11:30. And they told everybody, okay, go back, we'll see you at 5. And I got there at 5 and there were 20 guys. And I said to the coach, well, where are the other guys working out? He goes, they're not working out. We sent them home. I said, oh, like after. So that's when it kind of hit. This is professional basketball. And in 2.5 hours, they cut half the guys and just sent them home. And so I was lucky. I did well. I played well. And I made the summer league roster and got invited out to the California Summer League and played in that and did pretty well. And they invited me back, but back then the contracts weren't guaranteed. And so it was, you come in and we'll pay you for as long as you stay. But if we cut you in 2 weeks, then you don't get paid. And I got an offer in Italy for a little bit more money and guaranteed for the year and tax-free, the whole deal. You start, you play. And so I spoke to a few people. I ended up going to Italy and came back after that year and did the same thing. Went back with the Kings into the rookie free agent camp, made it, did California Summer League. And the second year I thought I had a shot because they needed a center. And I think back then you're allowed 10 players or 11 players and they only had 10.
Right.
And we had a couple of guys in camp and I said, I think I can get this spot. I said, I think I got this. And they picked the team. We go out to California. The day we get there, they signed, what's his name? Joe Merriweather, who was a free agent from another team. And so we basically got there and they said, well, the team's complete. The team's complete. And so I said, what do we get? I have to go home or stay here. And I said, we're still playing games. And at that time, there are only 24 teams. And I said, there's 23 other teams out here. So they're going to see me. It is what it is, and I'll try and do the best I can. And ended up going back over to Europe, which was, I think, a good thing. It was probably a good fit for me. I enjoyed it. I made good friends. I played there from 84 to 92 and it kind of, became my business without me even thinking about it. As I said, I made really good friends there. I have some good friends I still, am in touch with now. And so, when I got back, that's kind of how my business started, is with the guys from Europe calling here, and me just, again, guys who we played with, Chuck, who became coaches. You probably know a lot of them, the guys who just became an assistant coach or whatever.
Mhm.
And so it was kind of a nice match.
Did Roosevelt Bowie, did you guys hook up?
No, we didn't. He was in Italy, Northern Italy. I didn't play against him my first year. And then my second year, I went to Spain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he had a long career in Italy.
He did well. He did well. He made a lot of money.
Yeah.
He was a great player. He was a perfect fit for them. I was in Rome. I think at that time he was up in Bologna, maybe. He was up north a little bit.
Yeah, he was up in that northern area. Talk about now, how did you get into becoming an agent? It had to have something to do with the European connection, right?
It was a lot, as I said, it was a lot of the European stuff. And so when I stopped playing, I got a job working at Bear Stearns down in Brooklyn doing accounting work. And that was good. But, I wasn't ready to, my career ended. I ruptured my Achilles tendon. So it ended a little early. So I still wanted to play some basketball and got a job. And I was playing in Australia. So I went from playing in Australia, which in Western Australia is beautiful, beaches and outdoor activities, to sitting in an office doing accounting work in Brooklyn, like, 3 months later. And I said, wow, my life has changed. And so, I was doing that for a few years. And as I said, a couple of guys started calling, and it was, I think one of the guys was a general manager. He was the ball boy for a team I played for in Spain. And, we kept numbers, and he just called and said, Jeff, we don't have a lot of money, or American got hurt. And, you're working in New York, you played in, do you know anybody? I said, let me call some guys. So I called, the guys I knew, the Calzanettis, the Paul Cormiers, all these guys. And lo and behold, they said, we got this guy. He's been trying to get to Europe and he doesn't have anything yet, and he'd love to go. So I sent a couple of guys over there and said, after a while, let's form a company. And I flew over, I met with one of my former teammates, and we did kind of what we called like just a whole tour of Spain, went and met with coaches, general managers, and just kind of reintroduced myself and told them who I was, the type of players I'd look for, gave them my contact information, and said, I'll be, your scout in the United States. If you're looking for a guard next year, let me know early, and I'll talk to the guys I know, and I'll go watch them and get you film and see what we can do. So it's funny, back then, you had to, we used to get those VHS tapes. You remember
Yeah.
those?
Oh yeah, man.
I used to have to go to the school and pick them up, bring them to the post office, mail them to Italy. It'd take a week to get there. They'd have to watch it on their system or convert it, and then call me back. And it was just, you think about it now, it was only, 20, 25 years ago. But then the big thing is when they came out with DVDs, you can just put a couple games on a DVD and stick that in the mail and send it. So.
Yep.
So do you deal mostly with the European style kid or the
mostly
ABA
European
type?
stuff?
Because I noticed you have a couple of kids that I know in your stable. Joe Cremo, who played at Villanova.
Good kid.
And Maverick Rowan, which is Ronnie Rowan's son, right?
Yeah. Good
St.
kid.
John's guy. Yeah.
Good kid. So that's kind of our niche. So, the guys who, thought they were an NBA player, maybe did a year or two in the G League, or graduate college and say, okay, I'm a good player, but, I'm probably not an NBA player. My style is not a fit. And maybe Europe's the place I belong. So we try and find kids there. Over the last year or two, we've been, growing and getting into different countries and higher level guys. And so we're looking at trying to maybe get an NBA license this year and kind of move into that market. It's very challenging, very competitive, but I think, we're pretty good at what we do. We have some pretty good contacts, and it's all about fit. A lot of it's the recruit. If you get a good kid, then you can find a good team for him. So, I tell the guys who I work with, it's just, spend a lot of time, learn, talk to the coaches, find out about the kid, do some homework, talk to their high school coaches. And if it's someone who we want to work with, and someone who, because it's a relationship, you have to be able to communicate and trust each other and work with each other. And it's a process. And that's one thing a lot of kids don't understand, is it's, for 90% of these kids, you just don't go and sign a contract for $1 million. You have to go and prove yourself. You start all over again. You're a rookie, and
right.
You got to show them you can adapt, adjust, and play their style. And And then next year you move up and make more money. And the guys who stay 2 or 3, 4 years are the guys who are first division making a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, and people think, you know, you go there, it's Europe, but the European style of play and the players that they have there, do they still have the rule you're only allowed to have 2 Americans on a team? Is that still?
It varies country to country. They're changing it. You know, some countries have actually gone chucked to 1 because so many Americans were going over there, and Italy was having the most problems with guys getting nationalized. So you're having guys from New York who would say, grandpa was Italian, I got an Italian passport. And so now you'd have 4 or 5 Americans who are Italian. And so the Italian Federation kicked back and said, you have to be born in Italy to be Italian, or you can only have 1 non-Italian. And so it varies, you know, league to league, country to country. Still, some countries allow 4 or 5 what they call non-nationals. Like Germany, they'll say if there's 10 players on the roster, half have to be from Germany. The other half can be anything. They could be, you know, French.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if the NBA did that? Said, listen, we're only going to allow you to take 2 foreign players.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Think about it.
Yeah.
And it's funny, you guys, you bring up a really interesting point, because I have the conversation with people all the time, but you look at the way the game has changed. And someone sent me this stat last year, and it was something like, you know, of the top 8 players in the NBA rotations, foreign players take up 52% of the minutes. And the other interesting point is you look at like the MVP candidates and, you know, who got it, and you know, there's a lot of international guys there now who are, you know, if it's not Luca, or, you know, if it's not, you know,
Joker.
Yeah.
Joker, or even Joel Embiid is, you know, Caribbean.
Yeah.
You know, you have a lot of guys. And who was the defensive player, the guy from France, defensive player of the year?
Gobert.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert.
Yeah,
Rudy Gobert. And so you have Rudy Gobert, and, you know, just Luka
Giannis.
Giannis. And so you look at the MVP, and, you know, probably 4 of the top 5 guys were foreigners.
Yeah.
And it's going that way. It's funny because I do a lot of work over there, and I go and I see how these guys train, practice, and prepare. And it's a little bit different here. And I think what's affecting the game over here is a little bit of AAU. You know, you have this AAU thing is kind of, you know, parents pay, kids go, and it's just kind of street ballish, and it's kind of seeping into to college and pro, and you go over there, and you know, you watch the way they play, and it's a chess game. You know, it's I watched a game with my sons last summer. It was a Euro Cup game, and Barcelona was playing, I think, against Maccabi Tel Aviv or somebody, but Barcelona had a turnover in the 3rd quarter, and the guy goes, that's their 2nd turnover of the game. It's like midway through the 3rd quarter, it's their 2nd turnover. And it's just, you know, value the ball, take good shots, guys back on defense, balance the floor, and win. You know, and you win 65-63, it's a win, you know. And
yeah.
There's nothing to be said for scoring 120 points and losing, but having fun. It's
So let me ask you, Jeff, how do you go about getting your athletes to join your team? I mean, is it, and has it changed since all these rules have changed with the NCAA, with NIL and all these different things?
Yeah, it's affecting it, everything. The last 2 or 3 years have been goofy with COVID, because, you know, the first hurdle was vaccinations, and then, you know, teams with money, budgets, you know, sponsors gave a lot less money because teams didn't have people in the stands, and the gate receipts were down. So the general managers said, you know, we played 20 home games last year with, you know, 10,000 people at a game paying whatever. And then with COVID, we had nobody in the stands.
Right.
And so my budget's cut down to nothing. And the sponsor says, well, you have nobody in the stands, so I'm not going to give you whatever X, I'm giving you 30% of that. And so it's really affected it. And so I think what we look for is just, you know, good kids who love the sport, who we see upside in. You know, we do a lot of like watching style of playing, just kids who are hungry and aggressive and patient, and who are coachable. And you know, we've had guys come from smaller, and I say smaller, mid-level, you know, Division I schools like a Wagner or a Fairfield or something, and do great. And after, you know, 4 or 5 years, they're making $300,000 in Europe. And you'll have kids from, you know, the Big East of the ACC, and in 2 years they come home because they just, you know, it doesn't fit them, or they don't like it, or the coach isn't good, or whatever. But so, you know.
Last question, and we'll let you go, Jeff. We're running up against it a little bit. What do you tell kids that, you know, everybody thinks that they are better than what they are. You, me, Sonny, sometimes Sonny, not so much, but everybody else. Okay. You know, what do you tell a kid? The kid thinks he can go to the league. You know, he's not made for the NBA, at least at this point. You know, he has to work on his game and go to Europe. How do you talk? What do you say to a kid like that, that still wants to make money, but is not, you know, maybe not NBA caliber yet? What do you tell a kid like that?
I tell them the truth. I tell them exactly where they are, because it's so hard if you oversell it. Then in July, you got to walk it back and say, you know what, you didn't get drafted. I don't have anything for you. And you're going to play, you know, in Europe for a lot less than you expected. It's so much harder. And their AAU coaches will call you, their college coaches will call you, the parents are calling you. And so I think the best way to do it is we tend to undersell it. And my pitch to them is like, look, I've been there, I've played there. We've had guys who've been successful, but this is where I see you. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't see you getting drafted. And I lose a lot of kids for that, but I don't mind it, because I'd rather lose them early than have to, you know, deal with the reality later. And it's funny, I was down in Portsmouth, Chuck, this past year, and I talked to a lot of the kids. There's 64 kids there, and every kid you talk to said, well, you know, I'm an agent, I'm talking to them, where am I going to get drafted? Because those other three guys are all telling me I'm mid-second round, I'm late first round. And I'm like, I don't see you getting drafted. I'm sorry, but I don't see you getting drafted. They say, and they won't sign with you. And then I spoke to a bunch of the scouts there, and I said, realistically, you know, and Eddie Pickney was down there. Chuck, he was down there. I told him, I said, and he's in a huddle with, like, you know, 7 or other NBA guys. I'm like, guys, really, realistically, are these 64? How many guys are going to get drafted? And they were going to go, maybe 2 or 3.
Right.
And so I think you got to be honest, and that's just why I sleep better at night. I'm not going to tell a kid you're going to get drafted. I'm going to tell them, you know, I think there is a path. I've spoken to a lot of kids who are talented, and I'll say, look, you're probably not going to get drafted, but a lot of guys have made the league by going to Europe for a year or 2. And I've had general managers from NBA teams tell me that I like the kid who goes to Europe because he grows up, he matures, he defines himself. And now we know what we're getting as a 26-year-old player. We can scout him. We have scouts in Europe. We scout all those games, and we see, and we just, what do we want? As opposed to a little bit of a roll of the dice with a guy who's 21, 22, and we need to fit into our system. Let them do that. Come to me when you're 26, 27, you're good, you know, and I think that's actually a good way to run an NBA team. And so they spend a lot of time scouting. So I think the kids who understand that, you'll get as much exposure over there. And the other part of it is, you know, versus the G League, it gives you a better opportunity to work on your game because you're a focal point. You're the American coming in. You're one of the 2 guys who really are going to carry the team and have some responsibility versus one of 10 who are all trying to make the NBA and show what they can do. It's a nice path. You know, we've had a lot of kids get workouts and, you know, and things like that from it. So as I said, we're knocking on the door. We're not quite there, but hopefully, this year we get somebody who either comes back from, we've got a couple guys overseas, I think with the right season, they're going to, you know, they're going to get invited to training camp, and then it's up to them.
Yeah, that's good. It's good that you're honest with them, and they respect that, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah, but the good part about it is I tell them, if you go over to Europe and you have a good year and you come back and you go to training camp and it doesn't work out, guess what? I have no problem sending you back to Europe for a lot more money because you just had a good year. You're in training camp with the Kings or whoever, and now we remarket you to other people. And so you're going to keep on growing. And if the NBA never works out, you know, God
earn
willing,
some money while you're going.
You're playing, you're making $300,000 a year. It's tax-free. You're 7 months a year in France. Come on, right?
Well, that's nothing to sneeze at. It's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, Jeff, I have to say, you've had quite the career, my man. From playing in a 40-degree gym with the squirrels running across the court,
squirrel going
in
across
Massachusetts,
let me
to
ask
the Garden, and now the executive director and founder of Pro Basket Consulting. You did pretty well.
So I want to ask you guys a question before we go.
Yep.
Who do you like in the Big East this year?
Well, listen, I think that Villanova is going to be the dark horse. I think we're underdogs again this year, but I think it all depends on how Kyle does. But Creighton, they tell me, is supposed to be head and shoulders above everybody else. And I'll say this to you too. I love the way Providence plays. They're very tough. I love Cooley. I think he's a terrific coach. I think he does a good job with those kids, and they're always tough. So my top 3 teams in no particular order would be Creighton, Providence, and Nova.
I like it.
I'm going to put UConn in that mix too.
I was going to ask you what you thought of UConn. Yeah, I think
I'm going to put UConn in there.
Yeah, they're going to be interesting. We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah,
Long year is going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. I'll tell you that, you know, and it was nice. We got to a few games. Actually, Syracuse played us and Georgetown this year.
Okay.
So Sonny and I were at both of those games. It was
Yep.
a lot of
Took
fun.
the show on the road, baby.
Yep. Yeah. So it was really good. You've been listening to the Big East Rewind with Chuck Everson and Sonny Spera. The Big East Rewind is produced and directed by Nick Chicocoris and Daryl Gurney. You can check us out wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify and iTunes, etc. Also, go to YouTube and put in Big East Rewind in the search bar. And all of our videos we come up, we'll ask you that you like, share, and share it with your friends. Thanks a lot for joining us, and have a great night.
Thanks, everybody.